Your line is now muted.
Again, we are going to keep moving with our WIPS training and go into the 52 tracker portion of this. So we're going to go over the different workflows, the dashboard, how you can kind of set some defaults, creating requests, moving them through the workflow, monitoring them, the scorecard, all of that stuff. Picking that back up, from our systems page, I'm going to switch the user that I am using to mock as for today's training session. So just bear with me as I move away from our demo employee. And actually, let me just refresh here. We want to use our demo create 52. Okay, so for 52 tracker, if you have access to that, you'll access this in the same way that you access the portal or all of WIPS. There's the shortcut from FSIS applications to get you to the portal. Hit the systems page, and you'll see an unlocked block for the 52 tracker itself. So let's just get in there now. All right, when you come to the 52 tracker tool, the landing page is the 52 tracker dashboard. And let's just cover what you're going to see here. We'll come back to this at various points so you can see how the requests look when they are created. But just some initial information here. There's two tables on the 52 tracker dashboard. In the top table will be all the non-recruitment requests. Those are going to show up there. At the bottom are going to be any recruitment requests or any action to fill that recruitment request. So, let's say the recruitment request is getting filled by a reassignment or a promotion. Those would also appear on the bottom, linked to that recruitment request. So at the top is just all the, truly non-recruitment related pieces. Like I said, we'll circle back to this a couple points just so you can see different things listed in here as we go along. But as far as the dashboard goes, that's kind of the quick overview. Different columns will appear in the different tables, but you'll see that as we go along and the different filters that are available to you. So before you start creating a request, there's actually something really important that you can do. It's going to make your life easier. It's going to make things go a little quicker for you. So I highly, highly recommend you do that. And as a part of testing your access, this is something you can do right away, even if you're not creating something, say, today. The website, this question came through as we're wrapping up the other. What web address to test your access? Use the production OHR portal web address. I'm not going to click on it, but I'm just going to hover over it so I can remember. ohrportal.fsis.usda.gov. Use the production OHR portal to test your access. Back to 52 Tracker. What you can do right now that's going to make your life easier and speed things up is you can set some defaults. And, we'll go over quickly what defaults you can set. And when you have these set, we'll just skip over these steps when you are creating a request in the system and use whatever default you have selected. Now, you always would have the opportunity to go back and adjust them, but you probably won't need to, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Let's just kind of go over setting them, and as we go along, you'll see how those tie in. So if you go up here to Tracker Actions, this particular group of users, you have two options here. Either create a new 52, which we'll cover in a minute, but you also have this Set Defaults option. So go ahead and click that, and you are going to see a pop-up with different tabs for the different defaults that you can select. So you can specify a default approver, and in this case, I've already set that to Demo Approve 52. You can set a default authorizer for your actions, same thing there. You can set a default CC list. That's a new feature of the HRGSS version of 52 Tracker where we allow you to just notify other people that are maybe in your program area, even if they're not involved with a particular action, but just that it's been created so they kind of know not to create it or that has been done. You can specify that. For additional information, call, which is one of the steps that we go through. You can also default that if you just kind of want to automatically put somebody in there. Maybe it's the AA of your particular program area that just always gets dropped in there. So you can set that as a default so you don't always have to select it. So go through that, set your defaults up front. And like I said, when we're creating requests, we're just going to automatically insert those people. But we'll talk about how you can make adjustments or why that isn't going to truly be needed as we go through this. Okay, let's just get in. It's like a board game, really. The best way to learn this is just to start doing it, start playing it. So let's go ahead and create a non-recruit action, and you'll kind of see. So back at Tracker Actions, that's where you're going to start whenever you're creating something new, and you're going to see Create a New 52. Click that. And we are going to walk you through a wizard, a step-by-step process for you to provide all the information that HROD is going to need to process this particular action. Now, for today's purposes, we're just going to do a real simple change in duty station. But one of the features of our system is that what data we ask you to put in is going to vary by the action that you select. So just be aware that, not every action is going to ask for all of these steps. Some might ask for more, some might ask for less, some might ask for slightly different ones, but, the basic flow is always going to be the same. Create a new action, and then you're going to go through a kind of a step-by-step wizard to provide all the information that's needed. So step one is just a recruitment effort. We ask you that right out the gate because there's slightly different paths that this stuff goes through. So for our non-recruitment action, we're going to say no. Do you want to link this to an open recruitment effort? We're also going to say no to that. This is just a straight up, non-recruitment related request. Because of that, you need to select the person that this request is for, and we're going to stick with our tried and true demo employee. All right, search for that person, select them, click next to proceed. All right, next step, after you select the employee at the top, we drop in some information about that person that's relevant to the request that you're asking. So just some stuff that we want to make sure you have right at the ready in case you need to reference it, pay plan, series, grade, all that good stuff. Next step in this process is selecting the position. Now, this is going to default to that employee's current position, and you're probably not going to need to change that 90% of the time. If you're familiar with like the paper 52, this would be the from position side. The reason we do expose this here is that sometimes under very special circumstances, we might need to process an action against a position that isn't the current position. Like we missed an award and we need to kind of resubmit it to get it done, but it needs to be against the position that you had at the time, and since then you had a wiggy increase or something. So that's why we do expose this here on those real one-offs where we need to change it, but most of the time you're not going to have to do that. Just let the position that's selected automatically, just sit right there. The vice, obviously that's only going to be relevant for recruitment requests, so you can skip through that. Next, to proceed. Now tell us what you are doing, the action that you are requesting for this particular person. We're going to do a change in duty station, like I said. So I'm just going to search for CDS because that's the code, but you can also just search for the name. If I just put change in, for example, it would also find it. We also have a kind of meta description that we can apply to actions if we want to help you find them in any easier way. Change in duty station is pretty straightforward, so we don't have a different description for that particular one. But, for some like realignment or reassignment, we might have different names, and so, you can search off all three of these at once. If you put a code in, it'll search that. If you put a word in, it'll return that as well. All right, change in duty station, though, is what we're going with for today's purposes. Next, to proceed. Proposed effective date, this is optional. You don't need to fill this in. If you are filling it in, and if the date that you are requesting is less than 4 weeks from today, our HROD group has just asked that you at least give them some explanation on, why this is urgent. We all know those things come up. This isn't going to prevent them from getting things done in a timely fashion. This is going to hold you up. It's just, a convenient thing. Help them prioritize their work effectively, and, as much context as you can give them up front, the better. So if you are putting a proposed effective date in and it's less than 4 weeks from today or 2 pay periods, just, give us a quick primer so they kind of know that going into it when they start to pick it up and work with it. Next, to proceed. Action requested by, this is going to default to you. Whoever is selected here is who's going to print in that block on the 52. So we do give you a chance to adjust that if needed. And that's kind of varies by program area. Some of the program areas have very defined, these people can just create, these people can approve, can do both, these people can do the whole thing. So we default that to the current user, since that's what's going to be needed in most cases. If you need to adjust it for any reason, just search for who you want to drop in there and adjust it from here. Like I said, it's only important because it's who's going to print on the 52 itself. But if you're able to create, it's fine for that box to be populated with you. Just only adjust it if you need the AA to show up in that particular box for any reason. All right, next, to proceed. And we are getting into comments here. These are optional. Change in duty station. Demo employee is moving to, let's spell it correctly, third time's a charm, Alaska. We give you after you submit your request, we fire off some emails to the different people that are involved in the workflows. So the approver, for example, so that they can come in here and approve this particular action. You may or may not want to include this comment in that email, so we give you that option here at the bottom. If you don't want that comment to be included, you just want the vanilla notification, just change that to no, and this won't be in there. If you leave it as the default, which is yes, then that comment will just get included in the email that gets sent out. Next, to proceed. All right, now from this point forward, you're seeing anything that's kind of conditional to what you are requesting, that we also might need you to fill in. So for the change in duty station, for example, we also, you might need to change the program area, the office level. So we give you a step to do that, because maybe the change in duty station is putting them in a slightly different org code. This is going to default to where the employee currently is. So if it is not changing, you don't need to do anything with it. But if it is, you just use the drill downs here. If you need to go up a level, just select the, the empty one, and that'll let you kind of move it back up, drill back down. Let's just say that this change in duty station is going to move this employee to HROD in the Western branch in classification 5, because that's where our Alaska office is located. Next, to proceed. Supervisor, that's one of the conditional steps as well, based on what you're selecting. It's a pretty common one. I think most actions have this kind of toggled on as a step. We're going to default, again, to the employee's current supervisor. If that is incorrect for whatever reason, you can adjust it from here. Next, to proceed. Duty station itself. So obviously that's critical for a change in duty station. We're going to default to the current one, just because we always do that when we have the information, just to try to save time. But then you make your adjustment from here. So if we're keeping with our narrative, we are changing it to Anchorage, Alaska. So we're going to select that here. Now, if we have toggled duty station on for whatever action you are requesting, duty station is always going to be required if we're asking for it. So just be aware of that. The default will be in there, so you might be able to, skip over it without adjusting it. But something does need to be filled in. That's, critical to our operations, obviously. So we always want to make sure we're getting that up front. Next, to proceed, and I think we are done. Last step of this process is attachments. We have some ability in the system to require certain attachments for particular actions, which is not something we're going to be turning on for this initial rollout, but maybe we do in the future, which is why you see up here the message that no attachments are required. If they were, they'd kind of show up on this table. But you can select from a list of document types, if this was a recruitment request, for example, even for a change of designation or a change in duty station, you might want to put the PD on it. So tell us the document type. If there isn't a particular option, just leave it at DC other and just write the name in. And then simple browse, upload to the particular file. I'm not going to do that right now. Okay, at the end of this process, you have two options, either save or save and submit. Let's do the save first so you can just kind of see how that works. Once you hit that, you're going to be returned to the dashboard, and you'll see that this particular request is sitting in draft status. So when you save it, and you might be familiar with this concept from some of our other systems where we do the same thing. I saw a question come in. Can you upload multiple documents at one time? Yes, you would. When we do the recruitment, I'll make sure we point that out. But yeah, yes, you can. So you can, you might be familiar with our draft functionality with other systems. Basically it means if you, you want to come back to this later and maybe adjust it before you officially submit it to the approver or just move it ahead in the workflow. So if you don't want to do that, you just want to keep it in draft status, you'll do that and you'll see it on the dashboard as such. When you are ready to submit it, you can come back to it. You see this green check mark here. This allows you to submit a draft 52. So you're only going to see that check mark for ones that are in draft status. But this just allows you to submit it with everything that's filled in at this time. So, we liked our draft functionality. We wanted to preserve that. But then when it came time to submit the draft, we didn't want to have to force you to go back through the wizard if you were just ready to, you wanted to go check something. Maybe you have a new document to attach, but you can do that after the fact. We wanted to give you a way to just quickly submit a draft as long as you had everything filled in that was required. So if you didn't make it that far, you wouldn't see that checkbox. But as long as everything that's required is filled in, you'll see that. Click that. That allows you to, got a little error with the modal here. Let me just do a quick refresh in case. My EOF got timed out here in our test environment. No worries. Let me log back in. This happens occasionally here. All right. If I hit that checkbox now, yes. Okay. When you hit that checkbox, you'll just get a quick modal, summary of what you are submitting, just so you're aware. You have a chance to look it over before you do that. Submit button at the bottom. I'm going to click that in a second. Now, if you did want to go back through the wizard because you wanted to adjust it, you can click the link at the beginning, at the first column of the table, which I'll do now. And that'll take you back to the wizard. Everything that you selected is already filled in, but if you needed to correct a particular step, just go next, next, next until you get whatever you need to and make the corresponding change. But if you don't need to adjust anything, the check mark route is the quickest way to move one from draft to created. Now, at the very end of that process, if I just would have hit save and submit, it just would have automatically created it. And no draft stuff involved with that particular one. It just moves it ahead in the workflow. As you create a 52, a question came in, can you click a button to see what it looks like in the actual SF52 format? Not as you're creating it. But, after it's officially created, you can do that. We'll cover that in a second. All right, let's submit this one as is since we created everything. All right, come back to the dashboard here. So you see our 52 request. Now it's in created status. And again, if I just would have hit save and submit at the end of the wizard, this is what it would have looked like automatically. Certain information is filled in. Some information isn't filled in yet because it hasn't made it to HR to populate it. So the actual NOA code will drop in once they've defined that. The actual effective date will drop in once they define that, HR assignee, et cetera. But here's how it'll exist, how it'll look as it's moving through the program areas workflow. All right, let's go back to our objectives. We've created on recruit action. We've gone through the save and submit. So let's go through the approving and authorizing flow. So what's happening behind the scenes here, and I'll just speak to this while I'm switching to my approver role, is we're firing off an email to whoever you tagged, either via your defaults or if you didn't set a default, whoever you tagged on that particular step, notifying them that this request is out there and to come to the system and actually approve it. They'll come in, get to the dashboard, go into it and do what they need to. This is why I mentioned before that it's a wise thing to set your defaults, even if there might be certain times when you wouldn't want to use that person. The system isn't going to. Let's say that you're in OPARM and you have one person that can create and 3 people that can approve and authorize. You can set your default to who you're using most of the time, but we're not going to prevent, as long as people are set up with the same, security, we're not, any one of those 3 people that have the permissions can come into it and approve it. Even if we're only notifying one, even if you're only tagging one person to it, anybody else that has those permissions can come in here and do that. So that's why I kind of pointed out earlier, it's a wise thing to set your defaults. It'll save you some time because even at the times when you're not using it, we're not preventing somebody else from coming in and doing that. You can just, send them an external email, hey, can you go ahead and approve this one, and just so they're aware of it, and they'll come in and tag that. Okay, so our demo approver is who we're using. We're going to click the action to go into it. So when you do that, after an action has already been created, you're going to go to the summary page here. At the top, just some basic information. Some of it will be filled in as it goes along here, but just what was selected. If there are any attachments, you'll see it listed here. Any comments, you'll see them listed here. There is a change history section so that you can see what was done on this particular action, by who, and when. So you can kind of keep tabs on that. At the bottom here, you have a couple of options. You can go back through the Create Wizard and make some adjustments to it if you need to. You can also just adjust the notifications. Say you wanted to, this is the other reason why it's wise to set your defaults. You could still create it with your default and then just come back here and adjust it if you wanted to notify a different approver in your particular program area. You could always come back here and do that. Those will just take you back through to those portions of the wizard just as they look through as we went through them. So I'm not going to repeat that here, but you can go back into it and make adjustments. But just in the interest of time, at the very bottom, you're going to see the Set to Approved button. That is only going to be exposed if you have that approver permission. And in order to approve this 52, that's exactly what you're going to click. Click Approved. Okay, now if I go back out to the dashboard here, just to check in as we can kind of see this as it's going along, you see the status now is updated to approved. Now, there is a difference here with the kind of what we require to be done on actions and what you might have been used to seeing in DataCat. Some of the logic, business workflow logic in DataCat had was no longer 100% valid, and we weren't, FSIS wasn't investing, time and hours to adjust it when we were building the new system. We're just kind of living with as it is. So just so everyone's aware, all actions, no matter what, need to be approved. So there's a first level approval that has to happen no matter what. Only certain actions need to go through a second level, which is what we call authorized. So let's just identify quickly what those are. If the person you are selecting is a grade 15, which for our purposes today this person is, then that action needs to be authorized. Doesn't matter what it is, it needs to go through that second level of approval in the workflow. If it's a recruitment request, all of those need to be authorized. Doesn't matter what grade they are. If it's anything else, if it's a 14 or lower and it's not a recruitment, all that's needed is that initial approval that we just did, and then from there it'll be passed or ready for HR to pick it up and run with it. Now, it doesn't matter if it's only going through that initial kind of gate approval gate on the printed 52. That's who we'll drop that person into both boxes. If it's going through both, then we go through, we'll show it with the different people that interacted with it. So it doesn't matter which route you take, it'll print correctly depending on that. But just so you're aware, if it's a 14 or lower and not a recruitment request, after it's approved, you're done. Nothing more you need to do. Now, since this particular one is a 15, and just so we could show everything kind of end to end here, this one does require to be authorized. My demo approved 52 just also happens to have authorizer permissions in here, but maybe in your particular program area, it's a different person that might need to be involved with that step. If that's the case, email, fire it off, alerting them that this is out there. They'd come in, get to this page, and click the button. They have the same view and permissions. They can see everything that was done, go back through it. They can request a revision and send this back. If the authorizer notices something that needs to be corrected before they even do their portion, they can click that request revision button to return it to either the creator, the approver. Maybe an attachment is missing. We're going to, I'll just click on it just to show you that how that looks. But that'll kind of be the end of it. You need to select where this is going. What you're going to see there is going to be dependent upon how far this has made it in the workflow. So this action has already been approved. So there's only one step to send it back to, and that's the created lane. If HR was doing this particular action and they were returning it to you, they would, they could either send it back to the authorizer or the approver. So what you're able to select is going to depend on how far it's made it before you've clicked this. If you want to select a particular person, you hit the user to notify. Our demo create 52 is the one who we tag in this case, and then whatever comment, include this attachment and resubmit, or clarify this comment on it and resubmit. Whatever the case may be, that will get fired off in the email back to that person. I'm not going to do that just so we can keep things moving, but that is something that is available to you, and it's also available to HR. So just be aware, before they accept it, if there's something that needs to be done, they might be using this feature as well to, and obviously while they're communicating with you to resubmit a particular action. All right, but let's keep it moving here. We are going to set this one to authorized to kind of finish the workflow for it. Quit to the dashboard, and there we go. This is in authorized status. It's ready for to be picked up by HROD. Most of the time that means it's going to be picked up by classification. So they'll start working with it, approve it, kind of, go through the HR workflow that we're not going to obviously cover here today. Okay, so we've approved a non-recruit action. We have authorized a non-recruit action. Before we create a recruitment request, let's just talk about, how you monitor. So this is also one of the key differences between the WIPS the WIPS 52 tracker and the DataCat 52 tracker. In the DataCat world, there were kind of two separate entities. There was the 52 tracker that the program area worked with, and then there was a whole separate tool that you never saw that the HROD group worked with. And obviously they talked to each other, but they were separate things. And one of the differences with the new system is that now it's just one thing. HR comes to the exact same place to work with these actions. Now, what they see is different, and what they can do with it is different. They can code it and do all that stuff. But what that does mean, and this actually ties back to a question that we just received, is yes, you're going to see the HR workflow as it goes from classification to your specialist. So when classification picks it up, they kind of have an initial gatekeeper that they'll pass through it, but then they'll assign themselves. So you'll see that happen in real time. Once it goes to staffing and they're dropped in as the assignee, you'll see that happen as soon as they assign it on their end. Once they drop, update the effective date and all this stuff, you'll just see it because they're working from it in the same place that you are. So really, the dashboard is a really key tool for you to monitor just where your stuff is, who's working it. As they update the status of it, it's being processed, under review, et cetera, et cetera. As they update that, you'll see that reflected in the status column as well. Since we're not working, training those pieces with this particular group, all you're going to see up until this point is authorized. But yeah, as they pick it up, they're going to put their own status to communicate back out to you kind of where this is. So you're just going to see that in real time, exactly from here, because they're doing it in the exact same place that you are. All right. Let's talk about recruitment actions. So we're going to create one of those. To do that, tracker actions at the top, just like the non-recruitment was, and create a new 52. Remember that step 1 toggle that we ask you right off the gate, because based on how you answer this, you might go down one path or the other. So is this a recruitment effort? Yes. Click next to proceed. So you do have an option here on how you're going to tie this recruitment request to a specific position. You might be selecting from a standard job, or you might be selecting a vacant slot that exists in your particular program area. The way you're going to know one or the other is if you're not, not every program area has standard jobs. It's really just, I believe, OFO, district personnel, and OPHS, science lab staff that have standard jobs defined. So if you're not familiar with, if you've never interacted with them before, you'll kind of know that that's not the option for you. If you are selecting a standard job, that's the initial default to yes, and then you just hit the drop down to select the standard job that you are submitting the recruitment request for. Like I said, in our test environment here, I only programmed a couple of specific ones just to show the functionality, and I only grabbed the ones that were in OPHS just so you could see those. The OFO ones are, in their own category, and we'll cover that in the district training. But if you're recruiting for a standard job, great, just select it from the list. If not, change that to no, and then you're going to need to find that particular position. Now, all you're really looking for at this point is, find that vacant position, mostly off of the job title. Oops, vacant. That matches what you're looking to recruit for in the pay plan series and grade here. Now, later on the wizard, you're going to be able to adjust the program area, the duty station, what grade you're announcing this recruitment request for. So don't worry if what you're selecting here doesn't 100% match up. You're going to be able to adjust that as you go along. Just find the vacant one that we already have in our inventory, that's the right title and the right series and pay plan and, grade range, because that's all you're looking for at this point. If you're unable to find the position that you're recruiting for, reach out to us and we can help you locate it. This will kind of be a learning curve for everyone as we start to interact with it. So we're kind of at the ready to respond to this. If it's truly a position that we don't have in our database, we do have the ability to add that in through our position management module. So we can do that. But, we believe through our nightly feed that we've been running for the past 2 years, we've built up an inventory of positions. And, even as we've done some testing with our pilot group or from our initial training sessions where we've copied over actions that are in progress, we've been able to replicate them with what we have. But if for whatever reason you're not able to find it, reach out to us and we'll be happy to assist in a timely fashion so that we're not holding you up. So let's say we are human resource specialists in the security branch. Again, you're going to be able to adjust that later, but 0201, grade 11. The vice is optional, but it is very helpful in this case, just like it was in the DataCat world. It just helps the HR group know exactly where, kind of what slot this is being filled from. We're going to just say Captain America here. Next to proceed. All right, now we have some, specifics for this particular recruitment request. If you want to tie this to an establishment, which is only going to be relevant to, field personnel. So for those that are on this particular training session, you really just skip this. But what is below that are some things that are relevant. The species and the shift are not, but do put the schedule in here. So Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30, let's say, p.m. The timekeeper, please fill that in for us as well. We're going to say our demo approver just happens to be that person. Click Next to proceed. The POC for the job announcement, that is something new. You were not asked for that previously. It is optional, so you don't have to fill it in, but it's helpful to give that to the HR group up front. Whoever you select here, on the job announcement itself, if it's if you're giving people, if you have additional questions, reach out to this person. This is who they're going to put there. So make sure you kind of understand what you are filling in here. Let's just keep it with our demo here. The grade announced, let's just say this is going to be, we selected the 11, so we're going to announce this at 11. A plant type, obviously that's only going to be relevant to field personnel. Position status, if you happen to know if this is established new reclassification or unclassified duties. If travel is required, you'll actually see that again with some other fields in a second. Next to proceed, that requested by step, that same logic as the non-recruitment actions will default who the current user is. If you need to adjust it for any reason, go ahead and fill it in. The person that I'm submitting this as, I'm not using my demo creator. I'm using the demo approver. So that person, I didn't have any defaults specified. And that was by design, just so you can see, all the steps here and kind of understand how you're saving yourself some time if you go through and set these up front. So since I didn't have defaults, I got the approver, I got the authorizer, I had the CC step. If there's anybody else you want to notify, that's optional. You don't have to fill that in. Okay, comments here, recruitment, slots, OM 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, et cetera, whatever comment you need to put on it, that is optional. I've seen plenty of, existing DataCat ones that we've been using for testing that didn't have comments, so it's not something you have to do, but any context that's relevant is helpful. Okay, now you're on to those conditional steps, just like the change in duty station one has. So the program area is here. If you need to adjust that, you would just adjust it in the same way. Let's say this is going to be in the administrative services and procurement, and we'll just leave it there. So you can adjust where this position is going to sit. The supervisor, now this is going to default, again, based on the position that you're recruiting for. As long as there's a reports to specified on that job and that what position it reports to is filled by somebody, we'll default that to who is sitting in it. If it needs to be adjusted, just search for that person and select them. If you're submitting a recruitment request for a standard job, there's not going to be any default because there's nothing sitting there. You're just always going to need to fill that one in. Duty station, another one of our conditional steps based on what you're asking for. It's always going to be required. Just like I said, whenever we're asking for it, we need it filled in. This is going to default based on that position that you selected in the step one, but you can adjust it if you need to. I'm going to skip that since we did it with our previous one. Final step here, is there a move, terms, condition, and unemployment, if there's a recruitment incentive in play. This move is actually a replication of that field you saw earlier. We just haven't had time to kind of go back and adjust that yet, but we will. And if you set yes to one, it would set yes to the other. Just helps the HROD group know if these things are in play from the moment that they pick it up. Attachments, all that normal stuff that you're used to attaching to the recruitment request is still going to be required. So you're still include all that stuff, even though we're not enforcing the system to require it yet. The PD, the Appendix A. The drop down that you're seeing here might be a little bit different in production. As we've kind of rolled out some of these initial program areas, we found some additional types that we wanted to add to our list. So you're going to see a slightly more expansive list. And as we go through it, we might find new types of stuff that we want to add in. So just be aware that you might see different stuff there. Since I said we would just cover how to attach multiple files, let's say I had the PD. I'm going to pick a real generic doc that I have. If you have a second document to upload, hit this plus sign, and you'll just get another set of fields for this. Let's say, and here's the Appendix A. Just going to pick another one of these documents that I have on my desktop here. If you needed another one, just click the plus sign again, as many as you need to. Still save and submit. Since we covered the save through our non-recruitment request, I'm just going to go ahead and submit this one straight away. Now, the other reason I wanted to create this one as the approver, if you're set up in your particular program area to have the permissions, all the way through, you don't have to leave this request. You don't have to go back out to the dashboard and come back to it. If you're able to approve it, you're going to see that right here and hit that. And if you're able to authorize it, you can do that. There's some additional features here around holding it and setting a status that we're not ready to train on yet, but we will once we kind of get everybody in at the base level. So just ignore those for now, but it is something we'll be talking about at a later time. But let's go back to the dashboard. Okay, so there's our recruitment request. It's been authorized. It's ready for a classification to pick it up. They'll go through their approval before passing it on to staffing. You'll see that as it goes through the workflow and see the status updated accordingly here. Okay, back to our objectives. We've gone through creating a recruit action. But really the tool that you're going to use to kind of monitor the status of your recruitment request isn't really the dashboard. I mean, it is a little bit just to kind of see what the status is, but it's really the scorecard that you use. I think you all have those biweekly calls with HROD where you're kind of reviewing the scorecard. So let's go over that. There's a couple minutes here and we'll wrap this up. So if I go back to systems, we have a separate system for the scorecard itself, which if you had access to 52 Tracker in the DataCat world and you were either an approver or an authorizer, we gave you access to the scorecard system as well. If in your particular program area you are a creator, we didn't give you access automatically to the scorecard. In those instances, we kind of figured you were an admin, that is critical to this process, but maybe weren't involved in these biweekly calls. If we need to adjust that, just like everything else, as you're testing your access, just let us know, and we can turn this on for you, no problem. Okay, so the scorecard here works very similarly to the scorecard in DataCat with a couple of key differences. First off, we don't have that graph. What is most important for that, what that graph was really showing you was a count of where the stuff was, and we are definitely showing you the count. So we didn't spend effort recreating that graph portion of it. But one of the key differences you are going to see here, and this is something that the FSIS leadership asked us, to build it in this way, is you're going to see everything reflected in the count, not just the stuff that HR has accepted. So if you've just created a recruitment request but it hasn't been approved or authorized or picked up from HR yet, you're still going to see those here. You're going to see the inventory of any request, doesn't matter where it is. And the count, starts from the moment it is created, not just from when HR picks it up. And that's, again, like I said, that's something the leadership asked us to build that way. So this one hasn't been accepted by HR, right? But the clock is already running. Now we are capturing the time frame, behind the scenes. We know everything that was done for this particular action. If we wanted to isolate that in different ways, we can. But for the vanilla scorecard, it's just showing you from the moment it gets created. So at this top table, and I know we only have one recruitment request in here right now, but as you see the volume get created, you'll understand more. The top, you're just going to see a count of all the active recruitments that are in each status. Below that, for those same active recruitments, where they are in the 80-day hiring model. So this one that we have created, obviously, it's still in day 1, so it's in the 0 to 20-day range. If you have recruitment requests that have made it to a hired status, and we start counting that once an EOD has been set, just like the current scorecard does, then you'll see those reflected here. You'll see a number of hires per month and the average time to hire in days, then also for the fiscal year as well. And then at the very bottom, you'll see an inventory of all the actions that have been selected or that have been created. Once this particular recruitment request reaches the point in AHR where they've identified a selection, you'll actually see that appear underneath it. There'll be a little plus sign that you can expand and see all the individual selections that have been tagged to this particular action. This kind of grows as you start to work with it. I know the demo in our training, data in our training here is a little bit limited, but it starts to fill out as more and more gets created. Okay, let's talk about some final pieces, and then we're right at time here. How to reach out to us for support, the exact same way that we covered with the roster. Hit that ask a question, HR systems, give us the question or just enough to understand the context. We'll reach out to you. If you're familiar with just sending emails directly to that HR system request mailbox, great. Keep doing that. They go to the same place. We'll be happy to work with you from there. All right, what you can do now, just like the roster, test your access, log into the portal in production, go to the systems page, make sure we've unlocked for you all the blocks that you are going to need. If you had access to staffing, make sure you have the position management block, even though I know we haven't had time to go through that today, but we will at a later date. 52 tracker, scorecard, if you're interacting with those systems, if you're on the scorecard calls, make sure we got that for you, the roster, et cetera. So make sure we created everything accordingly. Now, for this particular group, the DataCat transition is actually a special topic. So for everyone on this call, if you go back to the meeting requests, you'll see the list of program areas that are included in this particular component. So OCFO, OED, OIEA, OM, OPARM, OPHS. We are anything that is currently in progress in DataCat, we are going to let finish in DataCat. There's just too much. Once the previous group that we brought on board were a lot of the smaller program areas, and they had a very small amount of actions in progress. So for them, we brought some things over. But now that we're moving on to some of the larger program areas, and even from this point forward, the larger districts, we're not bringing over any of the actions that are in progress. It's kind of a time-consuming process to do that, and there's just too many that are kind of in flux right now for us to do that in a reasonable amount of time. So we aren't going to, those are going to finish in DataCat exactly as they are right now. What we are going to do through the rest of this week is adjust your permissions in DataCat and make it so you can't create new 52 requests in there. Because as of this point forward, you are trained on the new system, or we consider you trained on the new system, and any new request, we want you to put in to WIPs. So, kind of over the course of the next couple of days, we'll just be adjusting the permissions. There's a, enter 52 that we'll be taking off of you just to remove that button. But we won't be adjusting anything else because we know you still need to be able to get in there and monitor those or be involved in those scorecard calls. And, for a period of time, there's going to be stuff in both systems that we just need to account for. It's not anybody's favorite thing to work out of two systems, but it's just a reality of, the time and manpower that we have available. But we are going to limit, what you can do, like I said, just because we want to force new stuff to come to our system to make sure everything is working there correctly, and that if there is anything that needs adjustment, that we're able to know what that is and respond to it quickly. So just be aware of that. But we are not turning off your DataCat access because we know you still need to continue to get into there through this process as things are kind of reaching their conclusion that are currently in flight, so to speak. Now, I will say, if your particular program area, it gets down to a low enough volume, there's only a couple of stragglers still hanging around, and there's a small enough volume there, we might choose at a certain point to bring those over if it gets small enough. But that'll kind of be a program area by program area decision, and that's not going to happen for at least 30, 60, 90-day range. So just assume for now that we won't do that, but it's in our back pocket if we need to kind of go that route once it gets to a level that we can account for. Okay, that's it. Now, we obviously didn't have time, like I said, to go through position management. That is a system we've turned on. It's out there. There's some cool stuff in there, but since it wasn't critical to the day-to-day operations, we didn't go through it. There will be a training session at a later time to cover that, cover the FAIR Act stuff, because that's a part of it as well, for the smaller group of people that have access to that. But we have met all of our critical training objectives. So hooray! I am going to stop the recording now.